All right, welcome everyone. It is 6 o'clock and we'll call our budget meeting to order. I would like to notice, please be advised, this is the first time we have done a hybrid meeting of this sort. We've been doing Zoom all along, so it's the first time we're trying this. Having said that, we do have a roll call. Everyone is here. Councillor Keogh and Deputy Mayor Cornelison are in the council chambers, along with myself, CAO Jonathan Graham, and our clerk, Jackie Tiedemann. All the rest of council is on Zoom, and our treasurer is on Zoom as well, as whether some other staff members will be coming in and out on Zoom this evening. So bear with us a little bit. This is a bit of a trial when we're trying this out. But before we begin the meeting tonight, I'd like to thank staff and the council members from the Budget Committee for their contributions to get here. Both staff and council members have sharpened their pencils to get the budget to this point. We've tried to address the ongoing year-over-year surplus issues and dive a bit deeper into the numbers. The presented budget actually represents a decrease of under 0% for residents in 2021. Most residents will see savings in their tax bills as there is no additional property assessments this year. This has been an especially important this year as we have had increase to water and sewer rates significantly. And the COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated this issue for some residents. The budget process continues to improve, and we will continue to provide a fair and competitive tax rate for North Middlesex residents for the years to come. So at this point, I would advise council members, it's like Zoom, please, unless you have questions, please keep your microphones muted. And I've already had my first glitch. Please keep them muted until you have a question. And I can see everyone on the screens. If you have a question, just put your hand up. If I miss you, call out. All right. And so at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Tracy. Oh, anyone have any pecuniary interests? Please bring them forward in writing to our clerk. And then Tracy, if you would like to take over, and she's going to present the budget to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Can everybody see it? Everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just go through the agenda. There's a quick little message from myself and a little understanding in municipal taxes. The 2021 capital budget review, which was passed in November. The operational budget overview, the water wastewater overview, debt balance and reserve transfers that are in the operating budget, and then our recommendation. So just the message from myself, it's on behalf of staff and the Budget Committee. I'm pleased to present the 2021 draft operating budget for council approval. While the priority of this budget was control on spending, staff were aware of the impact of COVID that has on our budget and our need to conserve the program, services, and infrastructure of North Middlesex for our residents. Staff understands the financial pressures many taxpayers are facing, especially due to the pandemic, and we have tried to find an appropriate balance. The 4.5% decrease, represented by 0.0004 decrease in the tax rate, maintains the current level of service as well as allows for transfers to reserves for future capital investment. And as a big thanks to the Budget Committee, it was all done online, which was very new for all of us. Just an overview of the budget process. We take our strategic plan, asset management plan, economic development plan, community input, health and safety, bring it through to the CAO and management and staff, to the Budget Committee, and then on to council. This is a snapshot of the consolidated budget. Gross expenditures for operating, 10 million. Gross revenues, 2. Water and wastewater is a 0 offset because it all goes in and out of the water and wastewater reserves. And from our 2021 capital approved, the 10 million expenditures, 7 million in revenues, the difference being made up in future debt and user rates from the water and wastewater. So how do we determine our tax rates? We take our total assessment, multiply it by the ratios set by the province and the county, and that gives us a total weighted assessment. We then take the total tax supported monies needed and divide it by the weighted assessment, and we come up with our residential tax rate. So this year, our weighted assessment actually went down, as every time that you have a change in a tax class, like our commercial went down and our industrial, it changes your weighted assessment. So our weighted assessment is down a little bit from 2020. So this graph represents the unweighted assessment, and as everybody knows, our biggest assessment is our farmland. Our biggest revenue, of course, is coming from our residential. So we were able to decrease the tax rate and keep the budget balanced. The 2021 tax rate decrease is 0.0004, which is not including the county or the school board. The school board for residential is staying the same, but we do not have the county rates yet. The education rate for the business tax classes is decreased a tiny bit. So, but we're still, like I said, we're still waiting on the county rates. So this is just a snapshot of an average, the average home price in North Middlesex. 2020, they would have paid $1,922. This year, it's going to be $1,835. It's an annual difference of $86.46, 24 cents daily. So here's just a snapshot of our capital that we approved in late, I'm sorry, I think I said November earlier, it was December, late 2020. So we used debt, gas tax, the vibrancy fund, development charges, the capital working reserve, vehicle equipment reserve, and tax levy was the final source of funding. This was the breakdown from the capital, just shows the amounts we were using. The tax rate was down to $992,370, which had a huge impact on our tax levy this year. So the highlights of the 2021 budget that's kind of throughout every department was the market analysis impact, the responsible maintenance of existing infrastructure and service levels within the confines of the municipality's fiscal reality. The OMPF was reduced again by 15%. We have done overall reductions in every department for conferences, education, and training. There was a reduction in tax levy transfer from capital, as just mentioned. We did have a 13% increase in insurance cost, and we also have the reduction in departmental anticipated revenues due to COVID. So we'll start out with, is there any questions so far, any of the stuff I've just ran through, tax, figuring out tax rate, anything like that?
Any questions? A deputy mayor has a question.
Thank you. Tracy, going back to the tax revenue that the municipality generates in farmland and residential, when the residential tax rates or tax revenue is higher than farmland, does that then include farm residences, or is that farm residences included with farmland?
No, that would be the farm residence would be a different tax class than the land. So their house and everything would be set at the RTC, and then their farmland would be the 25% of that, the residential tax rate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this point? No other questions? Go ahead, Tracy. I don't see any other questions.
Okay, we'll go on to administration and finance. So the key initiatives in these areas are the development charge update, the levels of a service development for core assets, roads, water, wastewater, and storm, the continuation of our Laserfish implementation, the continued monitoring of provincial orders pertaining to COVID and office staffing opening, updating signage and mapping at municipal cemeteries, introduction of e-billing for water and wastewater and taxes, and the introduction of the credit card acceptance. So this is just a snapshot of the expenses by departments and revenues by departments. And this is a comparison of the 2020 to 2021 spending. And I can, at this point, share my screen. So can you see my Excel, Mike?
We can see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we can
this
see them.
This is the summary of the administration. Is there any questions on the administration budget? Nope.
Are you going to go over those with some highlights on those, Tracy? Or do you want questions just on the whole administration budget at this time?
That's totally up to council.
Maybe you could hit some of the highlights first, you know, some of the changes, just hit some points on it, and then we can, council can ask questions to that.
Okay, so council budget is just pretty much the same as last year's, just the increase with the market analysis for salaries and things. Administration is down. That's mainly because of the transfer to tax levy. We've moved a couple people out of, we split some salaries going into like planning, which have come out of there. And reduction, like I said, of education, training, things like that. Service Ontario, pretty much the same. The only thing that's going to affect it might be the loss of revenue due to COVID for not being able to open, and then also there's going to be the salary impact. And human resources has gone up a bit, but like I said, we've tried to move any training, health and safety, anything like that into human resources, so we get a better snapshot of what it's costing us to actually have staff. But those would be the biggest highlights. I don't know if there's anything specific you'd want looked at.
Okay, so any questions from council at this point on the administration budget? Maybe I would start off with a couple of comments, Tracy, and one is the insurance costs going up, what was it, 12.7%, just under 13%. I'm
Right.
told that I found out that we were actually on the low end of the increases.
Right.
Many of our neighbors in the county have gone up higher than that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to say that, but that's the case. The other
Yes, 'cause
comment
Sorry.
comment I would make is that on March 9th, the county budget goes to council
Okay.
for the county, just to give you
Yeah, I was going to also say that in the administration, like you said, we had increase in 13% insurance, but we also included an extra insurance we've never had before, which is our cyber insurance. So that was an extra cost that we have that we've never had before. So
it will be interesting if I may, I don't see any other questions, but it would be interesting for Service Ontario when we do this for next year after 2 years of COVID, if we could get maybe 3 years of, you know, of numbers from Service Ontario for the past 3 to sort of go pre-COVID and, you know, during COVID and stuff, what those numbers would be.
So if you look, well, we have two right here up on the screen. If you look at, so our 2019 actual from Service Ontario was 51,000. And this year, even with our short, the closing for those few weeks, we were at 47.6. So we didn't do too badly, actually. So we'll see what 2021 brings.
Okay, just to follow up on that, if I may, and then I'll turn it over. Do you find that we're getting more people from out of the area for our Service Ontario with COVID? Is there any evidence of that, or maybe somebody can answer that?
I think Jackie would probably, the
Okay.
clerk would probably be better to answer that.
Thank you. So through your worship, we are unable to run any kind of audit to know where people are coming from. But we definitely have noticed an increase in our traffic overall. So I just think with some of the private issuing closures in the general vicinity, it does definitely impact our office. There was some extra incentives through Service Ontario this year because the private issuing network has been advocating that they are not being compensated for the amount of time sometimes with transactions. So I think that's been reflective in our revenue as well. So it's going to take a couple of years, I think, to know for sure what impact COVID has had, because there has been some additional incentives from Service Ontario because of the impact it's had. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. One comment I would just make to anyone who's listening from the general public is that all of the council members and staff have the binders in front of them with the complete breakdown. We're not just looking at this spreadsheet. We are looking at complete breakdowns. And that's why I'm asking. So on the administration budget, questions from council? Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. With a comment to the Service Ontario, perhaps the next year's numbers may not be accurate because of people playing catch up with 2-year licensing. This year they get away without paying, but there is a day of catch up. So perhaps maybe next year's numbers may not be accurate.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Other questions from council? I don't see any other questions on administration. We can always, if you have questions that come up afterwards on administration, feel free to ask whenever you have questions coming up on that. So Tracy, go ahead. You might as well start into the next one. I don't see any other questions at this time.
Okay, I'm just going to scoot down to a different tab. And just because the way this presentation is set up, the cemeteries are actually in administration because it's ran out of the clerk's office. So here's just the quick summary at the bottom of this sheet of the cemetery budgets. I'm not sure, there's nothing really big there. Jackie and I tried to go through it. We went through it last year and we went through it again this year, trying to get some more exact numbers or close numbers. So I don't know if there's anything in cemeteries that anybody be interested in.
Any questions or comments on cemeteries from council? I don't see any right now, Tracy.
Okay. All right. So I will stop sharing. Okay. So do you see my PowerPoint again? Okay, so now we'll move on to protective services. So the highlights of these departments are fire and police protection for 6,352 residents, roughly. Operation of 2 fire halls with 54 on-call firefighters. Health and safety has moved to administration, which I mentioned. Issuance of an average of 222 building permits annually. Inspections to ensure compliance with the Ontario Building Code Act. Conservation Authority levy, the annual mosquito control, and the bylaw enforcement, which includes animals, parking, tidy lot infractions, things like that. So the key initiatives for this area is begin the build on the Park Hill Fire Station, the continued monitoring of provincial orders pertaining to COVID, consider developing and implementing a virtual training for our firefighters, emphasis on maintenance program for diesel engine vehicles to reduce repair cost, and the shared building services with neighboring municipalities ongoing to get that up and running. So here's a snapshot of our expenses for 2020 compared to 2021. So 2020 we had 2.5 million in expenses, and in 2021 we have 2.4. Revenue is basically the same, not much change there. And just a snapshot of the spending in 2020 and 2021. So now I will bring up the Excel spreadsheet again, the summary, and we can see if there's any questions you would like to ask on that.
All right, questions from council? Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit about the build for the fire, for the new fire station, or whoever wants to, or Greg, whoever, and who's involved and what's the process right now?
Through your worship, there is a building group, not quite a committee, but a subsection of the fire committee that's spearheading some of the discussion. Currently, to date, we've had 2 meetings with Valley, who is the retained engineer and architect for the project, and we're just at a short list right now of presented options. The good news is we're hovering around pre-engineering design for the building. So long as we keep within that realm, we'll be keeping the costs lower as we progress ahead. So it's still early days, but we'll be having a schedule and consideration for council moving ahead.
Okay, thanks. Is Greg on the line with us? Greg, is there anything you want to add to that from on the fire, on the new build? Well, maybe we don't have him right now.
No, sorry, I was muted. No, I believe Jonathan captured everything quite well.
Okay, all right. I know we're just in the early, and we do have on that build group, there's 3 members of council from the fire committee. So that's just in its I just wanted to mention that because that's a large project coming up for 2022 build. Any other questions from council? What is the cost, the projected cost for the policing again, if you can remind me what the increase is?
It's actually a tiny decrease that went, their contract went down a tiny bit.
Okay, so basically status quo right now.
Yes, yeah, basically, yep.
Okay, questions?
Conservation
from
Authority,
council?
yeah, Conservation Authority went up a bit, mosquito control is pretty much the same. These departments pretty much stayed the same. There's going to be your staffing costs with the union agreement and the market analysis. There's obviously the 13% increase in insurance. But other than that, not a lot of change in this area.
The biggest number change in that might be the mosquito control, right? Whether we have to do 2 aerial or just 1 aerial.
So we budgeted for 2,
Yeah.
just because we did 2 in 2020. So we went with that for 2021.
Yeah, agreed. Especially after all this snow, we may have a wet spring. We'll see.
Yeah.
Other questions from council? No questions at this time? Councillor Moyer, did you have your hand up? No? No, okay. Carry on, Tracy.
Okay. So next is our operations, municipal drains and waste disposal. Kind of the biggest part of our budget. So the service highlights are the patrol, maintenance and repair of 726 kilometers of unpaved and 204 kilometers of paved roads, including winter maintenance. Waste and recycling collection for 2,164 households and 172 business properties. Operation of 1 transfer station. And repairs and maintenance on 400 plus municipal drains. So the key initiatives here: continue to complete regular operational duties with ongoing social distancing challenge, continue with the culvert and drain programs, continue with increased ditch maintenance, the cutting of the saplings down the ditches and things like that. Hopefully the annual spring cleanup, which was missed in 2020 due to COVID, and to continue to get our municipal drain invoices current, because right now we're working on 2018 invoicing, I believe. So here's a snapshot of expenses from 2020 to 2021. So our expenses budgeted for 2020 were 4 million, 2021 3.8. Revenue very close to the same, 281 to 294. Not much change there. And just a snapshot of the different areas of what was budgeted for in 2020 compared to 2021.
All right, questions from council? Councillor Moyer.
Just on the winter maintenance, there's quite a drop in there. Is that just because it's a split year?
Actually, in 2020, we had $100,000 transfer to reserve for extreme weather. This year, we dropped it to 25,000 because we had a good base in that reserve, and we just thought we'd continue to keep money going in, but we didn't need to put in that much of a
Okay.
transfer. So
Other questions at this time? Counselor Hemming?
Yeah, I'm looking at the drop in the drainage too. Is that because we're getting caught up on the drains, or just it's just going to be there's less work to be done?
the drains, well, there's a drop in salaries. There was, yeah, just a drop in salaries, and we didn't budget for contracted service because it all goes to a drain and then we invoice ourselves back. So that didn't really need to be budgeted in there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? No other questions? Carry on, Tracy.
Community services. So the highlights here is the care and maintenance of 10 facilities and 7 pavilions, care and maintenance of 10 sports fields. Grass is cut at 12 cemeteries, 12 facilities, and 3 parks, around 98 acres. And also the grass cutting on boulevards in Park Hill and Elsa Craig. Key initiatives, the implementation of the new booking software, and also Brandon's continuation of monitoring the federal and provincial restrictions on facility usage. And also, as with Brad, to continue our regular operational duties while continuing to social distance, repairs and maintenance on various municipal facilities, and the completion of the facility conditional assessment. So our expenses, budget expense in 2020, 1.4, 2021, 1.3. Revenue, obviously, we are down in our estimates for revenue due to the closures of the facilities. And just a snapshot of the spending in the different areas in 2020 to 2021. And I will bring up the spreadsheet. And just, so Brandon and I are working on some little more job costing in his area so he can get a better idea of the cost of his different parks and things. So the budget numbers are not really comparable between 20 and 21 because we've kind of rejigged some things, but is there any questions on any of the
Any questions? So Tracy, can you just make comment on that farther? When you said you made some changes to it, like in what actually did you change? Like what type of changes did you make there?
So we split the parks. Instead of everything just going to grass cutting, we now have parks, and then we have expenses for each park. We've split out some of a little more of the facilities, like the community centers and things. Brandon, is there anything else you can think of? Are you there?
Yeah. To the mayor and council, one of the big things that I want to see is costing of our ball diamonds, our sports fields. In the past, all wages have went to parks grass cutting. So that would include a park like Elsa Craig Lions Park if they were there for half an hour, or whether they were there an hour at Elsa Craig Community Park, it all got dumped in the same expense. When I'm looking at user fees for sports teams playing on our baseball fields, I would like a backline, like a database to pull from to say, oh, we spend, whether it be 150 staff hours a year at that ball diamond specifically, so that I know what our true cost to maintain that diamond is. And therefore I can somewhat justify where our fees are set at.
So here's an example here. If you look at Coronation Park, the expense was 132,000 in 2020, but that was every park was going into that GL historically. So we've split it up into different parks now, and with the revenue coming in, as Brandon explained.
Okay, just a much better true cost to our to what we
Yes.
spend at each one. Okay,
It's going to go a long way to the way that the province wants us to start, tracking our capital assets and things in levels of service. So if we have levels of service in our operating, it's going to be easier to transition to that in our capital as well.
okay. Councillor Moyer, did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess this would be for Brandon as well with the equipment maintenance. You had about 50,000. That has increased about $50,000. Are there some major maintenance that needs to be done this year?
You want me-
You can take it, Tracy, or I can.
Well, we added, just as Brandon was saying before about salaries, he added some salaries there for the time his staff is working on equipment and things.
So, yeah, so to that point, in the past, if they're repairing a lawnmower, changing the oil in the lawnmower, that was always done at the back of the arena. So they would always put on their staff timesheet, they were at the arena doing work. Well, now it's going to the equipment, and then further breakdown on that GL is going to be for us on the back end to say each piece of equipment subs into that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council? Deputy Mayor Cornelison.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for you, Brandon. One is the online booking. Does that mean that people can go online and book a facility and get confirmation, or do they have to wait for confirmation, or what's that going to look like?
We are just starting the implementation of that program next week, actually. I just filled out the preliminary survey this past week. We're still up in the air about what way we want to head with it. Talking to Perfect Mind executives, they've said there's pros and cons to each way. If it's a regular user who you know has booked before, you've had no issues with, you can set them so that they're auto approval if there's open ice. Whereas if it's someone completely new to our facility, you can set that it needs to be approved by either the facility manager or a staff member who's at the arena. There's lots of different approval methods, but essentially if you're a regular user of ours and there's open ice, you can book it from the seat of your living room and pay for it online and show up to your rental.
Okay, that's going to be my next question. So it can be paid immediately through the credit card then?
Yes, once we implement credit card software, which Tracy is working on, we will be able to accommodate that as well.
Okay, one final question, and that has to do with grass cutting. And I'm going to make reference to the West Williams soccer fields because I'm assuming that there's a fair amount of maintenance and cutting the grass there. Does it generate any revenue? Is it even used at all anymore?
We have had a soccer tournament there in the past, usually early August. There's a group that rents it for a soccer tournament, but as far as minor soccer goes, no, it is not used week to week, and it's basically us cutting the grass so it doesn't get overgrown and unusable.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council? No other questions? One comment or one question I have for you, Tracy, and that is the loss of income to the arena. We haven't mentioned COVID yet, so I'm going to ask you, can we claim that loss of revenue as well as just cost, but can we claim the loss of revenue?
Yes. Yeah. We will be able to, they'll be around phase 2 of COVID, where we'll be able to put in our estimated loss. We'll be able to do that for our tax penalty and interest. I'm still tracking that monthly. Brandon, we'll have to do an estimate on Brandon's loss of revenue. We're trying to keep track of the contracts that were canceled. So we've already got our funding for 2020, but we will be tracking it as well for 2021. We looked at Brandon's revenues for 2021 and we come in with the numbers that because of COVID. So we dropped the revenue numbers for sure. But we might be able to claim some of that back.
Okay, thank you. Other questions at this time from council? Seeing none, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay. So, back here. So economic development and planning. Key initiatives here, the completion of the community improvement plan, communication plan and website launch, the official plan, doctor recruitment, and the continued staff resources for our ongoing current developments. So not a lot of change here in these budgets. I did drop the planning and zoning has dropped a lot. We had budgeted for some contracted services that we're not using. We're actually doing a cost recovery with our developers, so we're getting that back. So that would be the drop in that one. And this just shows our planning. We're planning on having revenue this year instead of an expense. So that is the end of the tax levy. Is there any questions on the economic development and planning? I can just put that budget up there.
Any questions right now? I wonder, Mike's there, and maybe you could talk on any of those points that you can talk on or expand on that first comment about the CIP and different things.
Yeah, so it looks like a busy year. That official plan is a big one. That'll be a large part of my job duties in the following year. The official plan is in need of update, and we're starting to work through that right now. The website is pretty much ready to go in the background. We're getting training for some new agenda software to put in that, and it'll fit seamlessly with the Perfect Mind. And as you're quite aware, we are seeing a lot of development requests for information, and we are getting swamped on that side of things. So I think we've talked about some of my salary is going to planning now because we're picking up some of those gaps. But it's safe to say that there's a lot of interest in Park Hill, North Middlesex in general right now. And hopefully providing an update to council on the physician recruitment soon. And hopefully that's good news. So if there's any questions, specific questions though, I'm very happy to answer.
Yeah, is there any questions for Mike from council? No questions. I don't see any questions at this time, so. I'm not sure how come, but yeah, you got away with that, Mike. Carry on, Tracy.
All right. So now we were going to move into our water and wastewater. So water and wastewater service highlights. We currently service 2,350 water and 1,201 wastewater customers. We have 475 kilometers of water mains, 2 water reservoirs, and 2 booster pump stations, currently 1 lagoon and 1 wastewater treatment plant, and a number of pumping stations, force mains, and sanitary mains. So the key initiatives continue work on Elsa Craig Water Tower and the Park Hill Wastewater Treatment Plant, installation of meter pits for backflow prevention, water loss, and rural meter readings / repair, new budget format to track repair and maintenance on existing infrastructure, increase in reserve transfers for future infrastructure replacement and reconstruction. So I think I'll bring up the spreadsheet for that because this just shows an in and out because we've budgeted for 4.3 million in expenses and 5.2 in revenue, but that is the transfer to reserve that we need for the future infrastructure. So I will just stop sharing this and bring up the spreadsheet for you. And is there any questions on the water budget?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say these revenues are based on the new billing format. So.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Canelson.
My question was for Jonathan about the meter pits, if I may.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Jonathan, my question is for you on the meter pits. What is the life expectancy of a meter pit?
Meter pit, basically, with all the components are different within it, but give or take 20-25 years.
Okay. I thought
meters are less than that, Deputy Mayor. Some of the piping might be less, but give or take 20-25 on the physical pit itself.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Water, wastewater? I mean, we can do a bit of a recap of our capital projects at the end, just to go over those again when we're done going over operations. So carry on, Tracy.
And I just brought up the sewer budget. Is there any questions on the sewer? I know you guys all have the detail in your binders, but wasn't sure if there was a specific area you were wanting to ask about, or, and like I say, just like water, this is the new billing fees, hope with an emphasis on putting money in the reserve for future.
Okay, questions on this from council? Any questions? No questions? Okay, carry on, Tracy.
Excuse me, through your
Oh,
worship,
Jonathan?
didn't you want Jonathan Lampman to provide a update on the large capital projects?
Actually, yeah, with the water, wastewater, maybe it's a good time to talk about some of these projects. Jonathan, if Jonathan Lamb can do just a
Okay.
general outline of what these capital is going on here. All these.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, so the two single largest projects that we're taking on right now is going to be the wastewater treatment plant in Park Hill. We're currently under engineering and design, and give or take 30 to 40% done, depending on what discipline at the engineering firm. The water tower is about 75 to 80% complete engineering and design. And I'm being told that we should have a tender ready package to go out for mid-March. So we'll be looking to put that out to the market and see what the pricing comes back with. Those are the two big ones. I mean, I could get into some other stuff that we're doing if you would like. Those are the two major ones right now.
Yeah, go ahead if you've got some other update on it, even what's coming up in the next short future here coming.
Jonathan, I brought on the spreadsheet, those are your approved capital jobs there, if they're just like kind of for water.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of engineering and design obviously is going to be going in for the next couple, well, this year for the most part. So Park Hill Main Street engineering and design. We've pushed the county off for about 5 years compared to when they wanted to bring the paving down Park Hill Main Street in order to adjust rates and start building reserves. So we had some money to go after the water main. The water main is 1955 and it served its useful life. Therefore, we have to go down. While we go down Main Street, we'll look at the sanitary and storm capacity in conjunction with development, future development, so on and so forth. And also look at the downtown core in sidewalks and lighting and all these kind of things. We will be going out for engineering and design. By the end of the week, I will start soliciting for firms. The water main. So from the water tower, in order to get fire flow into Elsa Craig, we need to increase the capacity or diameter of the water main. The water main's currently mainly ductile iron with some PVC. It's 8-inch diameter. And we're looking at upsizing it at least 12 inches, if not more. Again, this is going to be going out for engineering and design this year. Park Hill Reservoir, we fixed the physical baffle walls and reservoir itself a couple of years ago. Now we need to fix the pumps, process, mechanical instruments, and SCADA. As we increase development, we're seeing more of a draw on this reservoir, and we just need to get it coordinated and working better to get water to the places it needs to go. West William Pumping Station, I have a tender meeting out there tomorrow morning. We've got the tender issued and we're looking at process control and mechanical upgrades to that. And then the meter pits is a program that will likely be rolled out in West Williams this year. And it's basically taking the meter from people's barns and basements and bringing it out to the edge of the right of way. That's basically the approved path on the water side.
All right, thanks. Is there questions from council to Jonathan on some of these capital projects this time? I have one for you, Jonathan. That is, at what point can we start looking for grants on these projects? Like, at what point do they have to be before we can start applying?
So in regards to the grant process, projects are moving ahead of one another. CAO Jonathan Graham, Treasurer Tracy, myself actually had a meeting about financing and the money end of these things. As it sits right now, the only real grant that we see out there is the ICIP green stream of funding, which the wastewater treatment plant will fall in. but there hasn't been a whole lot of infrastructure grants that have hit the market, you could say, as it sits right now. We're constantly watching. All of our consultants are watching. Everybody knows the position that we're in and everybody's looking, but we just haven't seen a lot. But as for accurate numbers for financing and that kind of stuff, very soon. But different projects at different levels. We got to make sure that we're kind of in the right, bracket for money in order to get the proper grants.
Okay, Jonathan Graham, you can add.
Through your worship, just to piggyback off your question there, to answer it exactly, in order to us to apply for, I would say 90% of the time for these grants, we need the engineering design done.
At the completion of engineering.
At the completion of engineering, and that's the position that we've had success with in previous. There are outlining engineering without engineering grants, but the demonstration of the threshold to the province is very hard without the engineering design in place.
So if stimulus money comes up from this, which it seems to be the talk that may happen from the upper tiers, we'll be in a good position. We should have our engineering done in time.
The lack of a better term, we'll have a Rolodex behind us to be able to, and not just a Rolodex, but a variety of projects, including even discussions that we haven't got to date, but we should be considering facilities as well as we move ahead of how we interact with the province for these grants.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the intention is to do a lot of engineering so that we are shelf ready.
Yeah.
And any stream that we have, that way we can grab and go when the opportunity presents itself.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
There's also consideration constraints locally that sometimes we might not just match a stream and we just have to proceed ahead. And that's mainly revolving around development. So we might have to remove ourselves from the grant, but if we're engaging with development in the right partnership, we'd be able to divert some of the development charges to these projects.
Okay. To help. Well, that's as good as a grant to us. I mean, it's not coming out of taxpayer pockets. That's what I'm. Any other questions from council at this time? Seeing none, go ahead, Tracy.
All right. So, all right. So this is in our operating budget and water budget. These are our projected transfer to reserves. 2.8 will be going to reserves. Now the water and wastewater, that is the amount that we put in just to balance the budget to zero. Because the water and wastewater should not be affecting the tax rate in any way. That could change, could be less, could be more. But the other reserves are in our operating budget and in this tax levy that we're presenting tonight. So our debt level, after 2021, we will have one more year of the payment for the shared services building. And just a couple notable concerns is the county, as I had mentioned before, has not gone to the council with their tax policy, so the tax ratios are not set. I'm not sure what's going on with the farmland class, but if that happens to change at the county, then obviously our tax rates will change. And then also our timeline of the COVID restraints for our revenues and things, that's also up in the air. So the recommendation tonight in front of council is that the council approves the 2021 tax levy of $8,088,779 and set the general residential tax rate for 2021 at 0.00792602, which is a decrease of 0.0004, and that council approves the water and wastewater budgets as presented. And just one more note that given that staff has not received the county tax class ratios yet, the residential rate could change if the tax class ratios set by the county are adjusted in any way. If this is the case, staff will bring an updated report back to council. Are there any more questions?
All right, so at this time, any questions on the budget? I don't care if it's capital, operations, whatever it is, now's our time to remember. This is the time where we decide what we're spending money on. So now's the time. If there's any questions, like I said, operation or capital, anything, we need to hear from questions on that now. Deputy Mayor Cornelison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. In going through my binder this morning, and I noticed that the replacement of the John Deere tractor was still included. Now, I thought that it had been repaired and Brad was considering keeping it. Is it going to be replaced or is it not?
Through your worship, I don't see Brad on the call, but it's not being replaced currently right now. It's still budgeted barring any failure. And rather because it was identified through reserve, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong here, it would just be an in and out that would balance at the year.
Right. It was budgeted through the vehicle and equipment reserve, so it just will not be taken from that reserve.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
Thank you again, Mayor Rob. Tracy, when you're asking us to approve the water and wastewater budget as presented, that's just what we saw here today for the 1-year term. Is that correct for this year's
Exactly.
budget?
Yep. Yeah. Yes. John's 2021 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, I would like to expand a little bit from maybe Jonathan Lampman wants to speak on this, or Jonathan Graham. And that is, you touched on Main Street Park Hill, that we've held the county back, but that's not because we don't want the road paved. But just to expand on that, when are they actually telling us we have to do our work by? You know,
Yeah, I think right now it's slated for 2022, I think is what it was. And it was previously supposed to be done, I think, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But we requested in order to build some funds and so on, right?
yeah, they worked with us on that, but it is basically, we have to do our water lines then, or they're going to pave it without us doing it.
Correct. And then we risk having failure on aged or out of life cycle, like water mains that are aged, and then we'll be tearing up the asphalt that was just paved.
Okay, so, but I think I heard from staff that there's a bunch of shut-offs don't even work. Is that right?
The lion's share of the valves down Main Street. It's about 1.6 kilometers from Park Hill Drive to Highway 7. And usually the girls at the front desk get flooded with calls anytime that we turn those valves, because water comes up and rises and everybody thinks we have a lot of water leaks going on. But in fact, it's just that we've turned valves to do something. But yeah, no, none of them work.
So we got
Very few of them. None, very few.
Okay, so we got to do that project. That's what you're saying. Like when
Absolutely.
they pave, we got to do that project before they pave it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Through your worship, I should mention that the county will proportionally be sharing in terms of the hard surface restoration. And that's why we're bringing this project forward, is that there's a cost sharing component that we can take advantage of here.
Mayor Rob, will they be doing the sewer lines at the same time or just water?
So what we're going to look at this year, Deputy Mayor Cornelison, is the engineering. So we know the water main needs to be replaced. We know that it's old. We will look at the sanitary, and sanitary will be deemed mainly by capacity and future capacity that is required. Storm is actually, the lion's share of storm actually falls within the county's budget and purview because the street drains to the storm sewer that they own. We do have little side streets and we do have areas that drain to it. So we will be on the hook for that. But again, that's all going to be capacity driven.
Okay, other questions? I don't know about this. Oh, Councillor Hemming, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, then that work that you're talking about doing there, Jonathan, down the main drag of Park Hill, we don't have a cost value on that yet or figure or anything on that?
In the 10-year capital plan for the water and wastewater, which form part of the rates, I did a prorated number against it for water alone. But no, we do not have a number, like a total number, including asphalt, curb, sidewalk, everything. But we will get that as we go through engineering design. We will have a firm number on it. And council will have the opportunity to sit down and review as we go through, 30, 60, 90%. And then when tenders are let, obviously.
I assume there
Councillor-
probably be some
go ahead.
grants available too.
Sorry, Councillor Hemming.
Councillor Hemming, sorry, Tony. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, the other part of that, sorry, I suppose, is there grants in that available for that kind of work?
Not currently that there would be like any substantial funding to that, but like everything, we keep an eye out for grants, we get the engineering ready, make it shelf ready, and then pull the trigger when we can.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Moyer, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Jonathan, just going back to the meter pits, you said you hope to start in West Williams this year, and that program that's at the cost of the municipality?
That's correct. Built into the rates via capital, Councillor Moore. And yeah, and the reason West Williams came to light is that we've done water loss in Park Hill and we've not found a lot, to be honest. But we know that the Park Hill system feeds West Williams, and we're doing the West Williams pumping station and cutting a flow meter in. So we're just going to continue. So the meter pits they'll do a bunch of things. They're going to help with the water loss, hopefully substantially. They're going to also provide backflow prevention and just ease of access for the municipality and the consumer. So it's attack an area by, move into an area and try to clean it up. Wholesome.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? No other questions?
Mayor Rock, before we go on, can I just correct my recommendation? I said 8,088,779. It's actually 8,090,779. It's off by $2,000. It just wasn't corrected when we changed a few numbers on the end, but the tax rate and everything is right. So it's just the recommendation it's got the wrong amount there.
Okay, all right, thank you. Questions from council? I mean, we've done our treasurer has done her presentation. Is council comfortable with the budget? I'm not seeing many questions, so you actually, what's council's wish? We have a recommendation in front of us, and that is to pass the budget. We've already passed the capital budget, and we've had quite a bit of discussion on that. The operational budget, I know there are some things that we can't, the numbers are the numbers. But if council's comfortable with it, the recommendation is that we pass this budget. What's council's thoughts? Councillor Moyer. Can't hear you, Gord.
I'd make the motion to accept the recommendation. I think the treasurer, the staff, and budget committee has done a good job in holding things down to decrease the rate this year. So I'd make that motion.
Okay, made by Councillor Moyer, seconded by. Are you seconding it, Doreen?
Yes.
Yeah, Doreen, seconded by Councillor McClinchy. Discussion on it. And this recommendation, this is a 4.5% decrease in our tax rate, correct? Across the board. Now, I'm going to ask a question before we do that. I want to be assured this isn't an artificial drop for this year because of COVID. This is because of the work that's been done on the surpluses and just sharpening our pencil. It's not going to come back and bite us.
Yeah, this was just kind of going through line by line and kind of comparing the last few years and seeing where we can, where we were kind of over. And we did cut our revenues because of COVID. So, well, hopefully we're in better shape at the end of this year. So,
thanks, Tracy. That is a credit to all of staff for working on that, and to the committee, the budget committee. I knew the answer to that, but I wanted people to be aware of that we didn't do an artificial drop in our tax rate for any reason that we're going to bite, come and bite us later. That this is what the numbers that we came up with. I mean, let's face it, if we can help our tax rate and help our residents, I'm sure it's a good news thing for all of our residents. I want to just mention that a farmer that I know very well saw me at the grocery store, and I was concerned when he approached me because I thought he was going to let me have it. But he just made the comment that anything you can do to help would be appreciated. And I remembered that comment, and I thought it was a great comment, and this is an answer to some of that stuff. So we have a mover and a seconder. Any other conversation on it? Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried. That's, I think, the quickest budget meeting that I have seen in an operational budget at council. I want to thank staff and the committee and all of council for getting this done. Congratulations. I think all we need is a move to adjourn.
Through your worship, if
Go
we
ahead.
could have a motion, we did have a tentative budget meeting set for March the 10th. But due to council's approval this evening, there would not be necessary to hold that meeting. So I would just like a motion that we remove that from our schedule.
Okay, moved by Councillor Keough, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? Carried. Okay, get ready, Doreen. Move to adjourn. Councillor McClinchy and Councillor Hemming. All in favor? Carried. Have a good night, everyone.